And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that President Zelensky hasn't yet read the proposal.
In a stunning revelation, U.S. President Donald Trump has declared that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has not yet read the U.S.-authored peace proposal aimed at ending the brutal Russia-Ukraine war. The war, which has stretched nearly 4 years, casting shadows across Europe and beyond. Trump said, quote, "We've been speaking to President Putin and Ukrainian leaders, including Zelensky. But frankly, I'm a little disappointed that Zelensky hasn't even read the proposal as of a few hours ago." According to Trump, Russia is reportedly fine with the plan, but Zelensky is not. His people love it, but he isn't ready, said the US president, challenging the Ukrainian leader's reluctance.
We've been speaking to President Putin, and we've been speaking to Ukrainian leaders, including Zelensky, President Zelensky. And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that President Zelensky hasn't yet read the proposal. That was as of a few hours ago. His people love it, but he hasn't. Russia's fine with it. Russia, I guess, would rather have the whole country when you think of it. But Russia is, I believe, fine with it, but I'm not sure that Zelensky's fine with it. His people love it, but he hasn't read it. So someday you'll explain that one to me, Jeff.
I don't have an explanation, sir.
Trump's peace proposal has undergone several revisions since first surfacing last month, criticized for being too lenient on Moscow. Yet, the stalemate continues. Zelensky claims to remain committed to working in good faith with the US to achieve true peace, acknowledging a substantive phone call with American officials after intense talks in Florida.
We are preparing meetings in the United States after the American team returns from Moscow and following the relevant consultations in Washington. Rustem Umerov, Andriy Hanatov, and everyone needed for the negotiations will continue discussions with representatives of President Trump. We are expecting news in the coming days regarding such meetings, contacts, and negotiations. Whether personal meetings or phone conversations, there is constant contact between all partners, and between the partners and Ukraine, everything is proceeding quite effectively right now. At the meetings in Geneva and Florida, Ukraine was heard and Ukraine was listened to. And this is important. We expect that it will continue to be this way. Only by taking Ukraine's interest into account is an honorable peace possible.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has yet to publicly endorse the plan, expressing last week that important aspects remain unworkable, even though the proposal heavily favors Moscow. Adding to the turmoil, Donald Trump Jr. issued a warning at the Doha Forum in Qatar. The US may pull financial support from Ukraine if a long-term peace deal remains elusive. Quote, "Americans have no appetite to write checks and continue funding this conflict." Trump Jr. harshly criticized Ukraine's leadership, claiming the wealthy fled, leaving the peasant class to fight.
I don't think Ukraine is going to be abandoned, but I think for years, again, it was the same thing as the last answer, which is, well, we want to attack Russia, we want to do this, well, when it comes to actually writing a check ourselves, no, the US is going to do it. The American public doesn't have an appetite for that. Since the invasion of Ukraine, I heard major leaders, Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Senate in the United States, saying, it's the #1 issue for Republicans in the United States. And I say, that's weird. I speak to Republicans all over the country every day, probably far more than Mitch has ever spoken to, despite his 379-year career in politics. I did that on a weekly basis, and I surveyed people at every talk I did. It got to the point where it was probably well over 200,000 Americans that I spoke to directly. And I'd be in a room like this, and I'd ask, is Russia-Ukraine a top 3 issue for anyone in the room? Nothing. Is it a top 10 issue for anyone in the room? I think I got 3 people that once said it was a top 10 issue. 3 out of hundreds surveyed, hundreds of thousands, every weekend for 2 years, till basically through the campaign. One person misunderstood the question. He thought it was a double negative. One person was actually from Kiev, so he was like, it was a big deal for him. And the other person was, I think on the board of Raytheon. So There was no appetite for that, but that didn't stop a Republican Party from saying it's the number one issue. It's not, and we actually have to listen to the will of those people. So we want peace, we want to stop the death, but I even saw that yesterday where, on this very stage, what was the idea for Europe, who is on the border of Ukraine, who has much more at stake if this happens? Well, our plan is to win economically when pressed on the issue. How are you going to do that? Well, we're just going to wait for Russia to go bankrupt. That's not a plan. That's not an idea.
I mean, obviously, Ukraine has a massive corruption issue, and as you say, they're being
It was a far more corrupt country than Russia, as delegated by the United States government prior to this war. But then, because of the war, and because he's one of the great marketers of all time, Zelensky became a borderline deity, especially to the left, where he could do no wrong. He was beyond reproach. Years of corruption, years of graft and theft on a world stage that everyone in this room knew was happening was totally absolved, and it's ridiculous. We're not dealing in reality.
But is your hunch that President Trump is going to walk away?
I think he may. What's good about my father and what's unique about my father is you don't know what he's going to do. The fact that he's not predictable, he's not following the playbook of every clown who's, again, been a bureaucrat for decades, you don't know. And so that forces everyone to actually deal in an intellectually honest capacity, which has not happened in far too long.
As the world watches, the fragile hopes for peace hang in balance, caught between diplomacy, distrust, and the urgent quest to end a costly war.